Now we've seen one important function so far in JavaScript, and that's calling a function. And we've also seen that there's a lot of functions we can call. But there's also one important thing that we may need to do every once in a while, and that is create and store a variable. Variables can be confusing to people, but they really don't need to be because they're really a very simple thing. All a variable is going to do is store something for you and give it a name so that you can call it or find it later. Of course, we're doing that inside the code, so the code needs to read it. And sometimes we're just storing a variable for a couple lines of JavaScript so that we can pull that item back up and have the value back again. And sometimes we create a variable just to store a value for 2 lines of JavaScript so that we can go back and use that value again. Now it's actually very simple. All we have to do is come up with a name for our variable and then assign it to something. So let me add a variable into our script block right here underneath the alert function call. For simplicity, I'll just call my first variable A. I can name it whatever I want, and to assign something to it, I'll just use the equal sign, and then I can assign it a value, like for instance 7. Now that's a line of JavaScript, so it does need a semicolon at the end, and we've now stored the variable A with the value 7. It's not going to be very interesting unless we actually use that value A. So let's go down a line and let's use it inside of a document write statement. I'll add another document write function call. Of course, we're using a dot in between the two, and parentheses because it's a function call. And then inside those parentheses, instead of adding a message that I want to write to the page, let me write in the value of A. So I'll just put inside the parentheses our variable named A. Now notice this time I'm not using quotes around my value because I want it to be the variable A, and I don't want it simply to write the letter A onto my page. Let's save that change really quickly. Now let me end that line properly with a semicolon, and we'll save our changes. And we'll go on back out to our document here in the web browser and just refresh the page. Now if you look closely, it says JavaScript created this text, and then 7 is right after it. And our document write statement has written the value of the variable A right into the text line. Notice it didn't create another line or anything like that. Our document write statements all gang up, so if you need something to break out to another line, you'll have to either add some HTML with something like a line break, or use HTML that indicates a block tag that'll separate the 2 pieces of text. But the bottom line here is, you see that we have one document write statement writing just a message for us, including HTML, and we have another statement down here writing the value of a variable, and we're using the same function call to do it. Now variables are also interesting because while they're storing a value, we can also manipulate the variable itself directly. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to create another variable down here called B. Of course, we'll treat it the same way. I'll just use an equal sign and I'll assign it to the number 4. Put a semicolon at the end. And in our document write statement, I'm going to use a little math. I'm just going to say A plus B. Now, of course, we know what 7 plus 4 is. It's 11. And when we add those 2 variables together and they represent those 2 values, we should see 11 in our statement. So let me do a quick save. I'll go out to my browser and we'll just refresh the page, and you can see that the 7 now changes to 11. So we've done math and we've stored 2 variables. Now I will point out that when I assigned these values of numbers, once again I did not put them in quotes because I didn't want the character 7, I wanted the number 7. Now to explain that a little bit further, let's make a couple of changes to our document. We can have a variable store anything we want. In this case we have it storing a number, but we could have it storing characters of text as well. And we generally refer to that as a string. So let me try this here. I'm going to set the variable A equal to, quote, Bob, or the name Bob. Now by putting it in quotes like that, those characters will be stored in A, and just for fun, let's change B as well. I'll change it to, quote, sled, and then we'll close quotes again. So I've got those 2 words being assigned to my variables. In our document write statement, we're simply adding A and B together, and we know what happens when we add 2 numbers together, but it looks a little strange when we start adding 2 words together. Let's see what we get. I'll save my changes. We'll go back up to our document and we'll refresh the page. And you can see that after the word text, I now see bobsled, which is really the 2 words combined together. So what this tells us is we can add more than just numbers in the program. We can actually add text together. Now let's take this one step further and clean up our page a little bit. First of all, I don't want my elements ending up right at the end of this line of text, so I'm going to go into the document write statement that we made before, and I'm simply going to add a line break tag to the end of the line. Remember, this is HTML, so the browser will render whatever HTML tags we give it. So I'll put in a BR tag with a self-closer, and that should give us a new line on our page when we see the results of our document write. And then just to make this write statement here a little bit clearer, let's add in something before we place in the result of the A plus B calculation. Right at the beginning of that statement, I'm going to add a quote, and I'll add in the message, the secret word is. I'll put a colon, and I'll also give it a space because we want that space to be there on the page as well. And then I'll just close my quotes. Now I want this to be added on to the text that we have for A and B, so I'm just going to add another plus sign in here. And now we should end up with the words the secret word is, and then the result of whatever the secret word is when we calculate A and B together. Let's save our changes here. And we'll go out and refresh the page. Now you can see that our new line of text is being dropped down a line because of our BR tag. And you can see the combination of all the elements that we had our JavaScript write. The first part of it was our literal set of characters, the secret word is colon. And then we created the last portion, bobsled, by adding two variables together and seeing the result.